Looks like we are ready to go now. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Johan, and I am part of the team here at PON. I want to welcome you to today's demo session with Ash Danes from Volunteero. Before I turn it over to Ash, quickly wanted to remind everyone that if you're interested in learning more about the solution, we'd encourage you to send Ash a PON message. You can do this by logging into your PON account, then navigating to the Volunteero provider page and clicking send message. From there, you can get answers to your questions and request a one-on-one. And as a reminder, we'll put PON credits in your account for every meeting arranged through the platform. And without further ado, let me turn it over to Ash to lead today's demo.
Awesome. Thank you, Johan. Really great to be here. So thank you very much for having me on board. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is just start by sharing my screen. And actually, one second. Johan, if you can just let me know that you see this okay.
Looks great.
Yeah, awesome. So obviously I'm going to be going into a live product demo. That's really the exciting stuff. No one likes presentation, but I've got just a couple of slides just wanting to introduce who we are, okay, because I think it's helpful context for everybody. I am Ash. I am the CEO and co-founder at Volunteero. And what is Volunteero? Well, it's a flexible, customizable volunteer management platform that helps you manage the volunteer lifecycle all the way from recruitment to deployment, reporting, and communication, and everything in between. We have two aspects of the platform that you're going to see today. One side of the platform is essentially a dashboard for charity administrators, so for nonprofit administrators. It's web-based but mobile-friendly, and this is really where volunteer managers and coordinators will manage from on a day-to-day basis. And then on the other side, we have an app for volunteers. Now that is iOS, Android, and also web-based for those of your volunteers who may well not have smartphones, okay? Quickly, just about who we are and a little bit of our background, actually. So we're quite new to the scene. We're here based in the UK, as you can probably tell from my accent, but we support charities out in the US as well. And look, what we are is actually a team of former volunteers, and most of us are still volunteers. And what we found is that our experience as a volunteer inhibited our ability to actually go out and deliver impact, okay? And what we felt is that volunteers, it's tough enough being a volunteer, right? Some of the stuff you're going to have to do, some of the work you'll have to do, it's difficult. So the toughest part about volunteering should be the volunteering itself, not the process, okay? That is our core belief. And we've got an amazing team behind us, but this is just an idea of the founders, how they volunteer themselves and a bit about their background before they joined Volunteero. We're backed by top investors in the space, all who believe in the vision that we're trying to create, i.e. making volunteering extremely seamless and user-friendly. And we're also backed by the UK government as well. And we have had some amazing testimonials from volunteers and charities alike. Charities saving vast amounts of time, as Steve would attest to if you were able to catch our testimonial there. And the volunteers actually are more productive because they're able to basically access everything they need at their fingertips. Okay, so that is enough of the PowerPoint presentation. Let's actually tuck into the product. So I'm going to try. I have been told before I can move too fast, so I'm going to try and rein myself in today. But what we're going to do is let's start at the top. We're going to start from the charity dashboard side, which is what you're looking at the moment. And what we're going to do is talk about, okay, a volunteer comes to your website. How do they start volunteering for you? Pretty good place to start. So for Volunteero, we first allow you to scrap those downloaded Word docs or PDFs that people have to submit via email. Okay, nobody likes it. You've probably been in a situation where you've had to do it yourself before. You really want to create an online volunteer application form. Okay, this is super easy in Volunteero. You can make numerous different ones if you've got different regions, different volunteer roles. And it's a drag and drop process. You've got all your fields and things down here, your different types of questions that you can ask. You can have multiple choice, drop down lists, your standard fields that would make up a volunteer profile. You can also have document uploads, whether you need driving licenses, copies of background check certificates, anything else like that. You can capture essentially everything you need from the volunteer at the outset very, very easily. You can also have them agree to things like privacy policies, terms, conditions, all of that good fun stuff as well. Okay, so once you've created a form, it's then very easy to get this in front of your volunteers. That can either be done by sending them a link directly, or you can actually have the form embed itself on your website as well. So it's seamless. They never have to leave your website. They have a really clean and easy experience. And what I'm going to show you is I've actually got one of these example forms up, and I've filled out a few details in here as well. So a volunteer would go ahead and submit their application form. Now, what we found is that volunteers feel that they send something off and they have no idea what happens at that point. It goes into some black hole in the cloud somewhere, and then they just don't know where they're at. Okay, so what we've created is the ability for them to track their application. So I might just pop in my email here, and this means that I am going to get automatic email updates when you as an organization change the status of their application. But we've gone one step further than that, and we've now allowed volunteers and organizations to communicate on an application form. Perhaps they forgot to upload their driving license. Perhaps they, made a typo in their email or something. Well, this allows you to solve that really, really easily just by pinging them a message, and they can ping you a message straight back. Okay. So if I just jump back into the platform, we're going to go into our submission section. So this is where all of these volunteer applications are coming in. And as you can see, here's my volunteer application. If I open it up, I can see all of that information that was submitted by that volunteer. I can update the status, as you can see here. This is the public status. So you may have a private status, which you can see here. You can create a process. So it doesn't matter what your process is. Maybe you only need to do 2 things for them to become a volunteer. Maybe it's a bit more intensive, and actually they've got to do training, induction, and a whole bunch of other things. Well, it doesn't matter. You can set up these. You can have as many different stages as you like, and you can note them and change their status internally. So this is your internal place to manage that, because you might want to put certain things in here that a volunteer shouldn't see necessarily. Okay. And here's where you can then easily just manage what the volunteer can see as well. Okay. So you've got 2 different aspects to this application and to managing it internally. So we've taken a volunteer through our onboarding stages. Now, how do we get them onto the system? We've seen copy and pasting from a Word document into your database and into another place and stuff like that, right? No more of that. We want to save you time at all aspects of the journey here. So here we go. I want to just onboard a new volunteer, and it is as simple as hitting create, and anything that they have submitted in their application form is going to pre-fill onto there and populate their profile as a volunteer. And on the last stage of setting up a volunteer, you can now grant them app account access. Okay, this basically invites them into your kind of volunteer ecosystem, shall we say? Okay, it's a closed, ring-fenced sort of environment, so only your registered volunteers can gain access when you grant it to them. The other great thing is that first and foremost, you can just synchronize their profile as well. So if a volunteer gets married and changes their second name, if they change their address, whatever it might be, they can do so on the app in seconds, and your profile will update for that volunteer as well instantly. Okay. So if I were to now hit the create volunteer button, the volunteer is going to get an automated welcome email with your branding, everything like that, saying that they've been invited by yourselves, whatever your organization name is. They've been invited by you to join Volunteero. Okay. They will have download links, sign-in details, username, password, and also things like videos and stuff to help them get started. Because after all, volunteers can be different ages, different technical capabilities, and we want to make sure that everyone has a seamless experience. So that welcome email gives them everything they need to get started and get up and running. Okay. Before I move on from this forms and submissions section, as you can see, every aspect you create all of this, you tailor it. You don't need us. You don't need development work on our side. You can make it perfect for your charity very easily. But the other thing you can do is create what we call client referral forms. So perhaps your organization deals with actual individuals. You might call them service users, or you might call them clients. Basically, the beneficiaries of your volunteering work and what your charity does. Now, they might need to submit a request for a food parcel or a request for a befriending service or something else that they might do. Well, you can also do that through this forms and submissions. So it's really, it's super versatile, this feature. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on and talk about, okay, here's our what we'll call volunteer database. Now, as you can see, I've only got 2 volunteers in here just to keep it easy for us all to follow today. But I want to walk through what does the database store and how is it used. So you might have a list of 1,000 volunteers in here. And the important thing is that you have the right information at your fingertips and you can find the right volunteers and get certain bits of data on them as well. So let's start by opening up our volunteer, Ashley Staines here. Okay, so standard profile information as you would expect. We can have qualifications. So you can have certain types of qualifications on your volunteers that you want to record. You can record expiry dates as well. So if I were to say this actually expired last year, let me quickly show you what impact that has. It has the impact of basically showing you very easily that you've got an outdated qualification on this volunteer, just FYI, and you can see, hover over to see what that qualification is. So let's just open that back up again. What I can also see as well is tags and groups. So we're going to touch upon those. Tags, what are they? Well, tags are something you can set up. They're a way to basically just pop an attribute that you care about. And it means that you can click a button to find any volunteers that meet that particular criteria. Okay, it might be language-based, it might be qualification-based, whatever it is, you can set them up. Tag your relevant volunteers, and then if you need to know who's got a driving license, it's as simple as that. Okay. Now, groups, how do they work? Well, think of tags as internal only, and then groups actually drive what the volunteers can see in the app. Now, let me give you an example. Typically, we will find that in a volunteer force, you may well have 1,000 volunteers, but maybe 100 that are fit and qualified to be counselors, mentors, befrienders, or something that's maybe a bit more sensitive, required more training to become one of those volunteers. Well, the important part now is that if a volunteer platform, you're going to start putting stuff out there for them to do, as you'll see very shortly, you need to make sure that only the right volunteers can see that stuff. Okay, a volunteer who's not been qualified and trained to be a mentor should not be able to grab and become a mentor for a particular individual. Okay, and that is how our groups feature works. You create the groups. They could be location based. They could be regarding getting your applicants on. It could be regarding the type of role that the volunteer might do. You create those groups. You manage those groups on individual volunteers. And then, as you'll see in a little while, it also helps for reporting, but also when you create activities and events and shifts and things like that, you can restrict who sees what. Okay. So we've talked through our volunteer database here. You've got a client database as well. And so your clients can either be individuals and organizations. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the client side at the moment. Again, as Johan said, please do reach out to us at any time on the Pond platform. We'd love to speak to you and show you how it worked for your organization. But we're going to move on now and talk about, okay, so you've got your volunteers into the system. They're up and running. They've got an app account now. Now it's a case of getting them to start doing stuff, right? You've got a fundraising event. You've got your shifts for your food bank. You've got a bunch of clients that need befriending or mentoring or something like that. Well, let's go through a few of those examples now. So I've created a couple of examples so that there's some stuff for us when we go and look at the app. But this is our feature that we call missions. Okay, don't get too hung up on the terminology. It's just within our brand. It's not seen that often within the platform, but it's really just the stuff that your volunteers can do. Okay, so we start out with a template. Okay, so this is essentially a type of activity. So let's take a fundraising event. You may have hundreds of these throughout the year, and you might want to classify them or break them down into fundraising events, school, college, or whatever else that it might be. But you start by giving a template a name, okay, that's going to be relevant so that volunteers can search and filter for stuff in the app and see what the type of thing they're going to be doing at a glance. You're then going to quickly go into the options section and choose, okay, well, what's this activity structure going to look like? What's the stuff that's going to be in it in order for the volunteers to go and complete it, basically, and do it? So is there going to be a location? This is important because, as you'll see in the app, if it's got a location, volunteers can see how far away that is from them. That's a super important thing for any volunteer looking to get involved in stuff that you're doing, right? It's how far away is it? Should volunteers be able to upload expense requests through this type of event? So maybe for fundraising events, great. Yeah, you're happy to pay for petrol for them to get there. But actually for other types of events, other types of things, maybe you don't want them to be able to do that. So again, everything is super easy to tailor to your organization. Is there some kind of checklist involved? Client safety. This is really where you're matching a volunteer up with an individual for some reason. So say, for example, your volunteers go out and help local elderly people in the community with gardening jobs, tasks, things like that. If they're going to go, yep, great, I want to go help out Mrs. Jones with some gardening, they will need to be able to contact Mrs. Jones once they're approved onto that particular activity. Okay, right? Otherwise, how are they going to turn up and do it and let Mrs. Jones know they're coming? Well, this basically means that when a volunteer is approved onto that task for Mrs. Jones, they'll then see a call button in the app, as you'll see shortly, to go, great, I'm going to call Mrs. Jones now and let her know I'm coming tomorrow. Okay. Scheduling. Is this the type of thing that's recurring? So maybe this is a one-off fundraising event, therefore we don't really have a recurring shift pattern or rota that goes behind this. But for a lot of your types of volunteering work, that may well be the case, right? They come in either the morning or the afternoon slot, Monday through Friday, every week of the year, okay? And I'll show you how this works as well. And then the very final thing I wanted to touch upon here is notifications. So we found from our, and I guess a good chance to kind of take a step back and talk about all of this has been developed over the past 2 years, basically. And from the very day one, we worked in partnership with charities. Okay, so we didn't just go, this is what we think they need. They told us what they need and we built it. Okay, and this is one of the more recent features this year, which was that they felt that volunteers want to get involved, but sometimes they just forget to check in and check what they can get up to on a platform, right? Okay, well, or sometimes they forget to report back and log their volunteering time or submit receipts and stuff like that. Well, basically, we've got notifications throughout the platform that you can set up and customize that give volunteers a nudge at the right time. Okay, I won't go into too much depth right now, but hopefully that makes sense. So there we go. We quickly created a structure for our fundraising event template here. Now we actually need to go, right, we've got a fundraising event next Saturday at the local town hall or something like that. Okay, so we start by going, let's go add mission. And I want to show you hopefully how quick and easy it is to get something out there in front of your volunteers. So we've got a fundraising event. Let's say it's for my organization, example charity. And so you're going to put in the details of what people are going to be up to. I'm not going to waste time typing out, what it might be. It could be various, but you can include information really about what are they going to be doing? What are your expectations on the day? But also things we also find is really, really helpful and really useful is you can include links in here. Okay, so if you've got resources you want to share with them and things like that, pop a link in. Pop it on a SharePoint, pop a link in, pop a website in here. But what's even cooler is we even have organizations that what they do is in their missions is they say, if there's a volunteer or a client that could do with our help and you meet them on the day, here's a link to our client referral form and here's a link to our volunteer application form, right? So they can be there as a volunteer ambassador and take a volunteer's application on the day in the app, right? It's super cool. And it's just extra powerful ways you can use the platform. Right, how many volunteers do we need, right? You know, with any kind of event, you may well need a certain amount of volunteers. Too many would be a problem. So let's say we've got a limit of 50. As you'll see in the platform, the way that works is once you've had 50 volunteers go, yep, I'm coming along to that, it stops being available for anyone else on the app. Okay, just again, another little feature that helps you manage things. There you go. It's picking up a location automatically from example charity, but I can override that to any other type of location it might be, you know, local park or something. Here's where I can configure my visibility. So this is going to go out to my fundraisers, or maybe I'm going to leave it clear because I want it to get in front of every one of my volunteers here. And I'm going to pop in a start date, end date. Let's say it's starting at 11 and it's going to finish at 2 p.m. Final piece here is, does it need approval or not? Again, you know, some things are sensitive. You might want to vet the volunteer that's requesting. Some things you're happy for any volunteer in your network to come along to that. So we're going to leave that clear here. And we're just going to create that. So you can genuinely put these out there in seconds. Okay. And that's now out in front of our volunteers. What about if you've got something that's a shift? Okay. So we've got, say, our food bank. You first create the mission. So here we go. I've created a mission, volunteer limit, the resources and stuff in the actual mission itself, even with a list. And then I can go in and create shifts. So I've already got, say, the morning shift in here. I can now create afternoon shift, any details you'd need in here, how many volunteers you need for each shift, approval or not. And there you go. You're just going to go time, choose the recurrence. So you hopefully have seen something similar to this in the past where you're going, right, I want it to be every day, Monday through Friday, 12 to 5 p.m. Okay. And it's going to go on for the next year or something like that. And as you can see, it's going to generate those shifts. They're going to go onto the mission and volunteers can now see that and go and start grabbing things. Okay. The cool thing as well to mention here is as I'm creating these new missions, volunteers in their app have their own notification preferences. So they can choose how often they want to know about new stuff that's relevant to them. They can say daily, weekly, monthly, completely up to them. So you're putting this stuff out there. The app's telling them that it's there for them. They get an email summary or an app notification, and then they go on, check it out and get involved. Okay. That is why our engagement on our platform is so high for our organizations. Okay. So I'm going to take a time now to switch over and show you the volunteer side. Okay. So for ease, I'm going to be showing you the web-based version of the volunteer app, only because it's much bigger. Okay. Most people use it on their smartphones. I think it's nicer on the smartphone, if I'm totally honest, but I'm biased. Yeah, we're going to show you on the web here for now. So what you'll notice is we are all about simplicity here, because at the end of the day, if it's not easy to use, a volunteer will not use it. And that is why we've seen people come from other volunteer management platforms before in the past, because volunteers don't know where to go. So you can't really get lost in our platform. So let's start on their profile. Okay. They get a little snapshot of where they're at, how much they've done, a little bit of their statistics, shall we say. We've also got badges coming very soon where you can help create automatic badges to be delivered after 10 hours, 20 hours, whatever it might be. Here we go. I set up my own notification preferences. I can choose between app and email. I can update my own profile information. Okay. I can update my password, things like that. But importantly, I'm going to dive in and go, right, let's go into my available missions. Okay. I am just going to leave this for a second. Cool. So let's just refresh. And so here I am. I know I've got some free time coming up. I want to get involved in a little bit more stuff. So here's a fundraising event. I can see what is the location. how far away it is from me, 245 miles. I don't think I'll be going to this one, but I can also see whatever information you've put in here, how many more volunteers you need, times, dates, information on your organization, etc. And I can go, right, I want to come along to this. Here we go, I'm coming. So once accepted or approved onto a mission, as you can see, you've then got other bits of info you can do. You can add it to your own calendar. So you can manage that in your own calendar. We think that's the sensible option here. You can get directions by just clicking on a link and it'll open up your maps, your Google Maps provider, whatever that might be. So hopefully no volunteers getting lost on the way. And then once I've turned up and done what I need to do, I can report back, logging things like my time, logging some kind of feedback, also flagging an issue or a concern. So if something happened on the day and you were worried about it, you can flag this and the staff members who manage you will basically get a notification instantly. So no more calling through to the switchboard, no one picks up and you're really worried about something. Pop this in and it'll be picked up instantly internally, okay? From a volunteer's perspective. And there you go, right? No one likes to submit reports. No one wants to get your Word doc out and dig it up and fill it out and email it back to you, but they will happily do that. Okay. And you start to get interesting data. Now, I like to keep you in the loop of things that are coming down the pipeline. This report will soon be totally customizable for each template, depending on what you want to capture. So if you have a series of questions you want to ask them after an event, easy. Okay. If you've got certain data points or KPIs, easy. Okay. Now, let me just go in and show you different types of events. Here we go. This one has shifts. I've got my info. I've got my item list. This is great. I know what I'm going to be doing. I know what I need to bring. I'm going to now have a look at my shifts. And as you can see, I can see the dates and times of all the shifts I want to get involved in. And it is as simple as going through and claiming or leaving them if I choose not to. Okay. So that's how the shift works, nice and easy. And what I've got here is an example where you're matching them up with an individual, okay? Because this is slightly different. But there's one that I approved for myself earlier, because as you'll see, I've put approval requests being needed here. And I think that's important, especially when there's an individual, they might be vulnerable. You don't want that phone number being accessible. You don't want their location being easily accessible. You want to approve that specific volunteer before they can get access to that. And the system does that for you. So let's quickly go and have a look at this. Here's one I made earlier, and we are approved on this already. So this is Gary. I'm now going to be a befriender for Gary. As you can see, now that I'm approved, I can get directions to Gary's house if I'm going around to have a meeting and a coffee with him. I can make a phone call. So on the phone, on the actual app, this would actually place the call directly, okay? But because it's a web-based app, this one, that can't work. So it just has to show the number for the volunteer to dial. And we have the hiding of numbers to basically make them anonymous. Okay, these are different in the US, but this is the UK version of the app. Okay, so it allows you to anonymize the number and stuff before you make a call. Nice and easy. Cool. So I'm just going to actually leave a report and I'm going to flag an issue. And I'm going to say I was really worried about Gary. And I'm going to flag a concern about well-being. So I can now jump back into the management side of the platform and show you what you can then see. Okay, so on the missions page, I can see how many volunteers I've got. Okay, who's coming along? So, right, we've just put out our fundraising event. I can sit here now and just watch the numbers tick up. And if I want to know who's coming along, I just go into the mission and see who's coming along here. Great, Ashley, brilliant, really exciting. You can also manually assign missions to people, okay? I don't have any volunteers available because Ashley's my only one. But if you did, you'd be able to even see how far away volunteers are. So you can use this tool to see who's the closest volunteer to any type of task, okay? Really, really easy. There we go. So that's just seeing who's coming along. If I want to see my shifts in a shift view like this, I can see again who's coming along to my shifts. They're color coded. So we're red if we've got no volunteers, orange if we've got some, and they would be green if we were full on that particular road shift or something. I can also switch to view it in a calendar view if that's preferable to you as well. But then let's touch upon the reports. The reports would show in any given mission. So if I go into Gary, I know that my volunteer is Ashley. My activity log shows what's happened when Ashley joined, when he's made phone calls, when he's left reports. I can see reports that have happened in the past. And as you can see, if I go actually onto the report section here, where I see an overview of all of my reports across all missions, you can see that if a volunteer submits a concern, you then have an internal workflow tool here, okay? If they flagged something, how do you know what's been done? Who's done what with it? Okay, well, very easy. They will show up as an action being required, okay? So here we go, status, internal action required. Here we go, I've got a bunch of stuff that's come up from volunteers. I need to do something with this, or at least I need to let my staff, my other colleagues know that I'm picking this up. So I'm gonna go in progress. This is now mine. I'm tackling this particular issue. And if I want to let people know what's been going on, I can go in and say, I spoke to the client. Everything is fine. Great. And I can even choose who to loop into the conversation from my other administrators, other volunteer coordinators, my manager, whoever. Loop them in, send a message, complete it. You've got an audit log. If ever you need to come back to it and see what was done, who did what, it's there for you to see very, very easily. So just to be conscious of time coming up. So look, a few more things to run through. We have an insights page. This is just real-time, easy access insights. You can get exports to Excel and connect it to other systems. So we have integrations. If you've got a Salesforce CRM, if you want to hook it up with Power BI to do more reporting, that's fine. This just gives you a really easy, ready to go snapshot of, I want to see what's happened this year for my, volunteer fundraisers or food bank staff or whatever it is. Very easy. I can see my volunteer insights. So over this last year, who's my top volunteers? What does my diversity of my volunteers look like? How engaged are they? Times they've been on the app, things like that. Here's our expenses. Again, if you want to talk about expenses, please get in touch on the Pond platform. And here is a feature that we are about to be rolling out. Okay. And it is, we will be the only, and I can say that with confidence, the only volunteer management platform with a real-time instant messaging system. Okay, so we have basically worked painstakingly to essentially replicate WhatsApp in the platform. Okay, so it's secure, it's encrypted, and it means that only your volunteers can be involved. So you don't have to set up WhatsApps, Facebook groups, things like that. You can create either a group chat or a direct chat with an individual volunteer from your force. Create the chat and start having conversations back and forth, instant. Read receipts. You can send, images, files. We're also working on creating quick polls. So if you've got all your volunteers and you want to know, all right, if we put on a Christmas party, who would like to come? There you go. Create that would be like a survey or something. And who wants another survey? Go on to Volunteero, create a quick poll, find out in seconds whether people want to come along or not. So nice and simple. So if you want to learn more about this, please do get in touch. And just very finally, I think, over the last sort of 5 minutes, just show you some of the other stuff that we've got available, but I will whiz through these just to kind of tick them off for you. So you have staff users, and you can create roles to restrict them. So if you're a larger organization, a big national one, and you need to make sure only certain staff members can see certain things, do certain things, very easy. You create totally customizable roles. You can then assign those customizable roles to your relevant staff members. So as you can see, you choose their role, volunteer coordinator perhaps. You can then also restrict them down by their grouping. So maybe I only cover the North or the South region. Nice and simple. We've got single sign-on. It's very easy to create and to configure this. So do you use Microsoft Teams and none of your staff members want another login? No worries. Okay, really easy. You can set this up in minutes. Do you want to connect this to any other platform? Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, Zero, things like that. Well, yeah, very, very easy. We've got a public API, and soon we'll have very easy out of the box integrations, but we already have integration set up with things like Salesforce and stuff. And we're happy to kind of work with you to build whatever it is that you need there. Okay. And I guess one other thing I wanted to mention here. So your stuff that's available, you also want prospective volunteers to know what types of things they'll be able to get involved in. Okay. So what you might want to do is turn missions into what we call public missions. Okay. So you choose them to be public. Okay. And you'll see why. And you've got to direct them to a little application form. So I'm going to quickly go through and create a few of these and make them public posting, direct them to my application form. And why? Because I mentioned you can embed your volunteer application form on your website. Well, you can actually also embed essentially an opportunities page on your website. Okay. So you can very easily, you don't need your website team to go and, oh, we want to like try and get some people to come and be fundraisers. Oh, I've got to go through the website team to get them to update the website and stuff. No. Once you've embedded this in your website, then you've got total control over it. Okay. And you can update what is seen here on this would sit on your website so that your volunteers can filter by location, by opportunity type, to see the types of things they can get involved in. For example, food bank, I can actually get the information I need to. And if I want to apply, it's going to redirect me to my relevant application form to get involved. Okay. So I think we've probably covered a large amount there. I think if I were to just sort of wrap things up with one kind of comment here, over half of the employees in our organization are developers. Okay. And the reason for that is because volunteering is changing all the time. COVID made massive changes through volunteering. And because of that, no platform should ever see themselves as the finished product or the finished article. And we couldn't agree with that kind of statement more. What we do is we have a public roadmap, and that is all generated and driven by our clients. So you come on board, first thing we're going to be asking you is, where can we do better? Okay. And you're going to tell us that. And believe it or not, and talk to any one of our clients, I'm happy to create referrals and things like that. They will tell you the same. Suddenly the thing that you asked for last month is popped into the system and they're using it. Okay. And that is our ethos, constantly improving. Anyway, Johan, I think I'll wrap up there. I hope that was helpful for everybody.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks, Ash. I did have one question. As people listening to this webinar are wondering for themselves, like, is this the right tool for me? Could you talk a little bit about like the sweet spot of your user base? Do they have to be X number of events per year or X number of volunteers managed? How does all that factor into pricing? Because it's such an impressively robust platform. I'd imagine some people might be concerned that, is this too big for me? So could you talk a little bit about that as kind of the final wrapper for the conversation?
Oh, it's a super question. Thank you, Johan. So, we are totally agnostic in that respect. And I think the point here is actually we wanted it to be so easy to plug and play that if you've got 10 volunteers, we want to work with you. Okay. And we want to make sure that the commercials work in that respects as well. So we genuinely have an organization with 12 volunteers, and we have one with over 20,000 volunteers. Okay. And we have everywhere in between. Now, in terms of our pricing, there is a pricing calculator on our page, but I'd love to kind of have, more in-depth conversation. We never want that to be a barrier. It is user-based. Okay. But what's important about us is you may have 200 volunteers, but you think they're active. By the way, they're probably not. Okay. And our platform basically does a lot of that housekeeping for you. So we only charge on active volunteers, but you can have you could have 1,000 in your database. And if you've only got 30 app accounts, you only get charged for 30 app accounts. Okay. So we charge basically licenses, Johan, on staff members and volunteers. Okay. And it depends how many of those you've got. And as you can imagine, economies of scale, as you become bigger, your price per user becomes smaller. I hope that answers the question. Oh, and finally, in terms of sectors, like as you can see, the point of what we do is we wanted to make it so easy and flexible that any use case can be covered. If you can tell us a use case that does not work in our system, I really want to know about it, because we want to build it and build the capabilities. But, you know, food banks, we've got local government, charitable organizations, non-profits. We've got hospitals, healthcare trusts, everything you can imagine.
Awesome. This was great. Thanks so much, Ash. And thanks for being part of Camp Impact this year. I really appreciate it.
No,
again, anyone, if you'd like to follow up with Ash, please use the messaging capabilities through the Pond platform. Any questions, you can also reach out to me. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you joining today. Have a good one.